Published 12:10 Eastern Daylight Saving Time, the 25th of June 2018. Updated 12:10 Eastern Daylight Saving Time, the 25th of June 2018. One of the most iconic locations in modern science will reopen its doors for the first time since 1957. London's Royal Observatory closed its roof to astronomers more than half a century ago after light pollution and high smog levels made observing the night sky almost impossible. Following the closure of the iconic observatory, researchers moved away from the UK's capital in a bid to find clearer skies. However, the Royal Observatory, located in Greenwich, now hopes to tempt them back with cutting-edge new telescope. The £50,000 $66,000 Annie Maunder Astrographic Telescope, AMOT, which honors a forgotten giant of astronomy, is designed to avoid interference from London's many light bulbs. It has been installed in the observatory's Grade 2 listed Alt-Azimuth Pavilion, which has also undergone a restoration. Scroll down for video. The Royal Observatory will honor Annie Maunder, a female astronomer who worked at the observatory over a century ago, with a new telescope pictured, named in her honor. The Royal Observatory was operational for centuries, opened in 1675 by King Charles II to map the locations of the stars in order to improve Navy navigation. However, the operation moved in 1957 to a new base in Hurstmonceux, East Sussex. Since the late 1950s, the site in Greenwich has served as a public outreach spot and a museum, with little astronomy taking place due to the high pollution levels. Scientists will now return to the Royal Observatory after the completion of a 3-year restoration project. The £150,000 $200,000 refurbishment was funded by grants, museum members and patrons, as well as donations from the public. The main attraction for scientists returning to the observatory will be AMOT. It has been named in honor of an accomplished, and tragically forgotten, scientist called Annie Maunder. Annie Maunder worked at the site during the late 19th century and the early 20th century. As a woman working in the field, her work would often go unappreciated, with her male counterparts unduly receiving praise and recognition for her work. Her husband, Walter, worked as her supervisor and the pair married in 1895. Sadly, due to a rule at that time which prohibited married women working in public service, she was forced to resign from her career after the wedding day. Maunder did manage to continue her work with her husband and became a Fellow of the Royal Astronomical Society in 1916. Despite being one of the best in her field, and often regarded as one of the forgotten giants of astronomy, her work never achieved appropriate recognition during her lifetime. Now, more than 70 years after her death, she will be posthumously honored with one of the most sophisticated pieces of astronomical equipment in the country. The £50,000 $66,000 Annie Maunder Astrographic Telescope, AMOT, honors a forgotten giant of astronomy, and also provides a way of avoiding interference from light pollution. The first image released from the telescope reveals the potholed surface of the moon. Annie Maunder worked during the late 19th and the early 20th century, when her work went widely unappreciated, with her male colleagues often getting praise for her achievements. Annie Maunder was an astronomer who worked at the Royal Observatory in Greenwich for 5 years. Starting back in 1891, she joined the organization after she finished studying at Cambridge University, where she passed with flying colors. Back then, the renowned institution did not award women degrees, but her mathematical prowess secured her a job as a human computer. Her role at the Royal Observatory was to provide supporting calculations for male scientists. But despite the limitations of her role on paper, Maunder soon established herself as an astronomer in her own right. She married her supervisor, Walter Maunder, in 1895 and was forced to resign, as married women were prohibited from work in public service at the time. Maunder continued to contribute alongside her new husband, observing solar eclipses and penning several books on the subject. The prestigious Royal Astronomical Society did not allow female fellows until 1916. However, Maunder was a member of the Royal Astronomical Association, which her husband helped found in 1890. This association explicitly stated that it accepted all academics, including women. Ms. Maunder went on to edit the association's journal for 35 years. In the decades since scientific work was ceased at the observatory, London's air has become cleaner and new technologies have launched which enable telescopes to take clear pictures in lower visibility conditions, says astronomer Brendan Owens. We can use what are called narrow band filters to get around the light pollution, and then there are the new processing techniques. We can take very fast frame rate snapshots and use only the steadiest shots to build the final result. It's known as lucky dip imaging, Mr. Owens told BBC News. Since 1957, researchers moved away from the Royal Observatory Greenwich pictured, and towards the countryside, where the skies are clearer. Scientists will now be returning to the Royal Observatory as a 3-year restoration project draws to a close. Refurbishment was funded by a pot of £150,000, $200,000, amassed from grants, museum members and patrons, and public donations. A mod is referred to as a single object, but is actually 4 distinct instruments. It will serve a multitude of purposes, including studying the planets, sun and moon in our solar system and observing gases of distant nebulae. Although it has been fixed, the 15-foot wide, 5-meter wide dome is currently manually operated via a system of ropes and pulleys, pictured. There are plans in place to automate this process. A mod is referred to as a single object, but is actually 4 distinct instruments. The largest is a 14-inch reflector which takes high-resolution images of objects in the solar system in great detail. A second is specifically designed to study the sun, while a third observes the wavelengths of different nebulae to distinguish the gases included in its makeup. The final instrument is a general-purpose telescope. The money from the public also allowed restoration work to be completed on the Alt-Azimuth Pavilion, which was in urgent need of repair after being hit by a bomb during the Blitz of World War II. It's a beautiful Victorian building that suffered major bomb damage. Half the building was obliterated during World War II, said Brendan Owens. Although it has been fixed, the 16-foot wide, 5-meter dome is currently manually operated via a system of ropes and pulleys. However, there are plans in place to automate this process. The automation work will be essential if we want to do more research projects, said Mr. Owens. It's either that or we get someone who is extremely dedicated with the ropes. The first images released from the telescope reveal the potholed surface of the moon and violent activity on the surface of the sun. London's Royal Observatory in Greenwich pictured closed its roof to astronomers for the final time more than half a century ago, when light pollution and smog made observing the night sky almost impossible. A mod has an instrument dedicated to studying the sun, pictured as an image taken by a mod of our star. A separate instrument studies the wavelengths of different nebulae to distinguish what gases it consists of. 1675 Royal Observatory founded by King Charles II to map the locations of the stars to improve Navy navigation. 1714 The Board of Longitude and Longitude was founded. The Astronomer Royal was always an ex officio commissioner of longitude. 1767 Astronomer Royal Naval Masculine began publication of the Nautical Almanac, based on observations made at the observatory. 1818 Oversight of the Royal Observatory was transferred from the Board of Ordnance to the Board of Admiralty. 1833 Daily time signals began, marked by dropping a time ball. 1899 The new physical observatory, now known as the South Building, was completed. 1924 Hourly time signals, Greenwich time signal, from the Royal Observatory were first broadcast on the 5th of February. 1948 Office of the Astronomer Royal was moved to Hurstmonshire. 1957 Royal Observatory completed its move to Hurstmonshire, becoming the Royal Greenwich Observatory, RGO. The Greenwich site is renamed the Old Royal Observatory. 2018 The observatory reopens after a £150,000, $200,000 refurbishment.